Hi, and welcome to Talks with Shay. So, today I would like to begin with reading from Psalm chapter 147 and verse 3. And it says, He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds. So, today for part 2 of Trapped, I would like to talk to you about trauma. So when I'm talking about trauma, I'm talking about something devastating that happened to you in your life. A lot of times we feel trapped because of the trauma that we've experienced as children. And if we're not careful to deal with that trauma properly, we will project that on other people. We will raise children that are, in a sense, affected by the trauma that you've dealt with as a child. You know, when I think of just my life in general, I've had a lot of trauma as a child, as an adolescent, as a young adult, and as a grown adult. So when I think about just the different traumas that I've dealt with in my life and dealing with, it's the whole purpose of counseling. I train foster parents with the job that I do now and some employees. And in the training, we have what's called TBRI, it's trust-based relational intervention. And so this training deals with children that are like in a foster care system, how to handle them, and we call them children from hard places. But when we look at just our lives in general, some of our lives, we can be considered a child from a hard place. We may not have been in the foster care system, but it doesn't mean that our life was not hard. If we're not careful to deal with those traumas, we will grow up and have a lot of anger, have a lot of resentment towards people that have hurt us. So what we do is we feel trapped in the trauma because it's undealt with. And when we think of undealt trauma as an adult, you become a very unhealthy adult. Sometimes that's not easy to hear, right? Because all of us want to think, y'all have to excuse my voice today. I'm losing it. But excuse me. Anyway, a lot of times as adults, we don't want to recognize the trauma that we've actually been through. So what we'll have a tendency of doing is kind of pushing it to the back of our brain and not want to deal with it, because what we're doing is dismissing it in a sense because it's still there. There's that old saying, just push it underneath the rug and not have to deal with it. But the reality of it is you're going to deal with it another way. So the most important thing that you can do is to deal with it now if you're younger. And if you're older, it's not too late. I think of myself, right? I've been doing counseling now and therapy for I think about 4 years now. And so it was a place where a time when I was going to do it every week. And then I started going every other week. And now I do monthly because it's a lot of things have been dealt with. But y'all, we can't no longer feel trapped by the trauma that was caused to us in our lives and not want to deal with it. We become unhealthy adults. We all want to be healthy adults. And in order to be a healthy adult with your relationships and even within yourself, you have to deal with the trauma that is at hand. Stop trying to push it off and act like it never existed, because that's where a lot of resentment and anger comes from. When you think of just the people that's in your circle, how you treat people, how do you trust people? Do you even trust people? If you have issues trusting people, it's more than likely because of some of the trauma that has taken place in your life. When I think about raising children, I don't have kids, but other people that raise kids and stuff like that, if you are not even careful about how you were raised and you would think that was your normal and it wasn't really normal. You will raise your child the exact same way, and it's not always healthy. So you look at it, it's like it's a domino effect, right? Or some of us call it a generational curse, because you were raised a certain way. So you think that that was the right way. Then you raise your children that way. They're going to raise their children that way. And it goes on and on. But it's up to us to break that generational curse. You can do it. Get the counseling that you need. A lot of times people don't want to go through counseling because they rather not have to deal with the pain again. You know, when I first started going to therapy, it was after an incident that I witnessed, a cop killing this black guy or whatever, when all Black Lives Matter was like ramping high and everything else like that. And I can remember my therapist asking me, you know, during this, we were doing EMDR, it's called. And so focusing on the tragic event and what was the most, I guess, the position at the time that was the hardest for me, which the whole thing was, but the actual shooting and seeing the weapon and all of that. But anyway, fast forward. So I remember her asking me, you know, it had started pulling out old things. And she asked me, she said, is this something you're ready to deal with? And I was like, yes. Because I'm like, I'm 40 something years old and I'm still holding on to a lot of trauma that I've had in my life. And I'm like, it's time for me to be a healthy adult. It takes a lot for us to be honest with ourselves. But if we're not honest enough with ourselves, brutally honest with ourselves, we will never find the inner healing that we actually need. And it's God's will for us to be healed. You know, when we think of just something like on the outside, externally, that a womb that you get, that womb have different stages of healing. It's the same thing inward with us. There's different stages of healing, but you have to put in the work to get to the healing that you deserve. It is God's will for you to be made whole, but it's up to you to want to be made whole. You know, when I think about just talking with people and different things like that, it's hard sometimes for people to recognize my parents didn't do a good job. But you know what? A few months ago, you know, God had to tell me they did the best that they knew how. And I had to have peace, and I found peace in that. Let me say it like that. Because no parent is given a manual how to raise children. Every parent do the best that they can. But the thing is, you always want your children to grow up to be better than you, be more healthier than you. And I'm not just talking about in a physical sense. I'm talking about emotionally healthy, you know, sound mind, you know, and all of those things. You should want better for your child. If you're an angry person, you're more than likely going to raise an angry child. You may not see it now, but in the future, when that child becomes an adult, that child can become an angry person. How are you teaching other people and your children to let go of the trauma, to deal with the trauma and different things like that? I remember in one of my marriages, my ex-husband told me, he was like, I don't like arguing in front of the kids and, you know, disagreeing in front of the kids. And I'm like, well, to me, that's almost like a good thing in a sense, because if you are a mature adult and know how to have a disagreement in a healthy way, that is teaching children how to have a disagreement in a healthy way, without the yelling, without the cursing some people may have going on, whatever it might be. You don't have to yell to have a disagreement. So it's up to us to teach children. But if you were raised and you were always yelled at, because it was a disagreement, or always heard your parents yelling, you're more than likely going to raise your children the same way. And yelling does not get our point across any better. I'm just saying. I'm a loud person by nature, you know, so sometimes I got to be like, Shalonda, like, calm it down. Don't get overly excited, you know, and things like that. But it's up to us, you guys, to recognize that we feel trapped with the trauma that we never dealt with. It's time to pull the rug back, pull the Band-Aid off of the wound, and deal with it so God can truly heal you inside out, for you to be a better person and to be a healthier person. Amen. Amen. You know, when I think of even a few weeks ago, we had a ladies event at our church, and it was on inner healing. And I'm telling you, this lady, her name is Sister Gwen Poche, did an amazing job, you guys. And it brightened up myself. It showed me the light. It's like the light bulb went off for me, because like she said, one of the things that she said that stuck to me was that sometimes we can be our own abuser. And that's what I was, because so many negative things was implanted in my mind. I started believing those things about myself. So it was always like a constant battle within myself. But when she said that, I'm like, you know what? I made up my mind. Today is the day. And I bought a picture of that little girl that had been faced with so much trauma, and God impressed me to lay it at the altar and believe him to heal me. And I sit here before you today to say he did it. You know, I am no longer that abuser of myself, because I'm becoming that healthy person that God wants me to be. Don't allow being trapped in your trauma to stunt your growth in God, and furthermore, to stunt your destiny and the purpose that God has for your life. So I hope something that I said helped you today. And I'm so thankful, you guys, of having a healthier mind, a healthier heart, and a healthier wholeness going forward. And I hope the same thing for you. Get out of that cage. Get untrapped from the trauma. Deal with it even when it hurts, but deal with it, because it will heal. Amen. Amen. So before I go, I just want to remind you, if you haven't already, check out my website at www.talkswithshay.org. You can subscribe to my videos on YouTube and find me on Facebook. Like my page, share my page, invite your friends to like my page. And until next time with Talks with Shay, Shay is out, and y'all stay blessed.